let's get started. So if you look at, so this is the little practice piece that I'm going to be using to demo for you guys. But one very important thing to note is the orientation of this piece. We want to make sure that this piece is lying flat on the top plane like so. And when you click this little top face over here, you should have a bird's eye view of your piece, and it should almost appear two-dimensional. Right? So once your piece is oriented like so, you can, now we're actually going to be generating the Gcode. So if you go to the top left, we're in the design workspace, but what we want to do is go to our manufacture workspace, right? So now we're here, and what we're going to want to do is we're going to click above setup. There's these two things. We're going to want to click setup under the milling category. We're going to select our machine. So I already had it selected before. I'll show you guys how to do it again. So for me, I've been cutting for some time, so this is already here for me. You guys might have to go to local or the Fusion 360 library, but this is the one you want to select. Our Autodesk generic 3-axis, and it should look exactly like this. Fusion 360 already has it. You might have to download the model. That happens sometimes. So just save that. Sure. This happens sometimes. Just wait for that. Awesome. So now our machine is selected. Fusion 360 already gives this to you, but this is the one we want to choose. So we can leave all of these categories untouched, but when we hit this little origin category, what we want to do is instead of stock box point, we want to click model box point. And what we're going to want to do is select one of these four corners, like so. So we'll get to the reason why we do this, and you'll understand the use of it later in the video. Just remember to do this for now, as this is kind of what the orientation of your piece is based off of. So we're going to click OK for that. Just click the back here if it ever turns like this. Boom. Click this drop down. Click that. And now we're going to start with our holes. So here, let me orient my piece a little bit tilted like this. Awesome. We're going to click the 2D drop down, and we're going to click bore. And first thing we're going to want to do is select our tool. So as you can see, I've already created a tool. And what you're going to want to do is, this is a 4mm end mill. So, depending on your machine, you guys are also going to have to create your own tools. And I'll link all our tool specifications and how to actually do that in the description. And it is a flat end mill for those of you who have to create your tool. So I'm just going to click this. We already have all our data from our machine. Once again, I'll link, all of our data. There's a little short video, and I'll link it in the description. And you can also use it for different parts. Right now it's just aluminum. We also have a polycarbonate subcategory, which has these different settings. So we're just going to select this and click that. So now our flat end mill is selected. We don't need to touch any of this. It'll do it by itself. And we're going to go to geometry. Now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to select our holes like so. And now you can see that our holes are selected. Now that you've selected all the holes that you want to drill into, we're going to move on to this tab over here, heights. And we have all these values here. And for us, what we're going to want to do is change these. So instead of 10 for our clearance height, we want 5 for our offset. And instead of 5 for our retract height, we're going to want 7. Alright. And for our bottom height, we're going to change this to -1. So just for like a quick description of what each of these terms mean, our clearance height is our height at which the bit moves to the first cut, and it's going to retract after the last cut. Our retract height is the height to which the bit rises before moving on to the next cut. Our top height is the height of the top of the piece from the bottom of the metal, and your bottom height is the height of the bottom of the piece from the bottom of the metal. So what we do is we put -1 here just in case your metal is uneven. And what might happen is, what you should generally do with the CNC is have a little wooden board underneath, just in case that your bit goes a little bit deeper than the metal. It's just going to cut into that wood, and it's just like a piece of scrap wood, so there's no harm done if it gets cut. So now that we got these, we're going to move on to our next category, which is going to be passes. So now that we're in our passes, little category over here, what we're going to want to do is we're going to select multiple passes. We're going to change our number of step overs to 1. And what we're going to want to do is we're going to select this as well, our stock to leave, and we're going to change this to -0.01. Alright. And the reason that we're going to want to, first we'll start with the step over. The reason that we do this is because the bit is going to be cutting at multiple radii around the hole. So what we do is we select multiple passes, because you don't want your bit to just go straight down through all the metal at once, because we only want to cut it at one radius measure around the hole. And for your stock to leave, what it's going to do is it's going to add or remove metal from your 4mm hole. So if your bit is 4mm and it therefore can't cut an exact 4mm hole, we're going to want to add an extra 0.01mm to the diameter of the hole. So, and you can see that I put negative here because negative values denote extra cut metal. So that's just a little bit of information for you guys on there. And now what we're going to want to do is we're going to go to the final thing, which is linking. This little last category over here. And what we're going to want to do is just change all of these categories to 0. Those two. And basically what your lead-in is that the bit is going to cut through the metal slightly before reaching the actual piece, and it's going to sweep into this piece. So that's actually, it just wastes metal and is very unnecessary. So we can change all of these values to 0 and click OK. Just give it a second. Awesome. You got your little mini toolpath right here, which you can see through these lines. Now what we're going to do is we're going to work on the pockets. Now that we have our little toolpath for the holes of our piece, we still have pockets and outlines to cut. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our 2D drop down here, and we're going to click 2D contour. Alright, so our tool and everything is selected, but what we're going to want to do is when we're in the geometry tab, you guys are going to need to select the underside of each piece. So you can see I've selected the underside of that piece. Underside, the bottom of this basically. And now you can see I have all of these pockets selected, and now I can move on to my heights. And what we want to do is this should just be the same as the previous Gcode file we made. So this is going to be 15, right? And this is going to be 7, and we're going to make this -1, just like we did the last Gcode. Then we're going to want to go to passes, and you can leave all of this here, and we're going to want to click multiple depths. And instead, for our maximum roughing step down, instead of 9, what we're going to want is 1.05. And the reason that we do this is because, our bit isn't just going to drill straight into the, 1/8 inch thick metal and just go around. That's how you're going to break a bit. What this is going to do is that ideally it's going to do around, 4 to 5 or 3 to 4 passes. And what we want it to do is for every pass, it's going to drop down 1.05 millimeters. So that way it's not directly drilling into the metal. And actually Fusion gives a nice little image here. You can see that it goes by increments down into the metal rather than just cutting it straight up. And finally we go to our linking, and we want our lead-in values to match the same parameters as the last one. 0, 0. Awesome. And we're going to click OK. And now we've got our awesome little pocket Gcode right here. Alright guys, so now that we have our our Gcode for our pocketing, there's one last thing to cut, and that's the outline of this whole piece. So something clever that you guys can actually do is that since we know that the parameters of all the values we teach are going to be the same, for this 2D contour we can actually just simply duplicate it. So you can see it pops up here. Double click this, and all of these parameters are going to stay the same except for the geometry. So X this out, and now what you're going to want to do is just select the underside of your piece. Just like that. And what's pretty cool is that all your parameters will stay the same. Remember, we already tweaked all of these for what we want. So you can just click OK right after this. And there you have it. That's your Gcode. So now that we have all of these 3 separate things, our bore, our contour, and then our outline, now all we're just going to have to do is post-process or export these. So we're going to do post-process. You're going to want to change this. Instead of this mock simulation, you are going to want to select your CNC router parts, this machine, and Mach 3 Mill is actually the software that we're using. So make sure it looks like this. And now what we're going to do is we're going to change, instead of this, we're going to do holes, right? Make sure all of these values match mine. And we're going to do post. Awesome. And then we're going to just do the same thing for all of these. So, okay. Nope, not duplicate. That was bad. Sorry, post process is what we want to do. For some reason, there it is. There it is. Once again, change it to this CNC router parts, and then Mach 3 Mill, because that's the software we're going to be using. Change this to pockets. Whoops, can't spell. Pockets, post. You can see it's just going into a file in my computer here. And then finally, post-process your outlines. And we're going to call this outline. And you got to make sure to select that. And this is just your path. Post. And there you have it. That is how you make Gcode for use with the CNC router.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another Don't Blink tutorial video. Make sure to like, subscribe, and absolutely smash that notification button so you guys know when we upload.
And again, if you guys have any questions, please don't be afraid to reach out. We're very active on the FTC Discord, and we'll put all of our socials down in the description.